And the eco-zealots from Just Stop Oil's campaign of terror have been wreaking havoc on the British public for 6 months now, and it shows no sign of abating. In the past week alone, they've disrupted deliveries of food, fuel and even newspapers and put lives at risk with serious acts of criminality that police have failed to deal with properly. Look.
I'm really struggling to breathe. Probably because I've got really severe asthma.
Just stop oil. We're just trying to stop new boiling out.
Now, yesterday, members of the eco-militia had the nerve to release a video of one of their protesters giving an emotional speech while stuck down a hole of their own making, set alongside Louis Armstrong's What a Wonderful World.
I mean, the last lines where Louis goes, I hear babies crying, I watch them grow, they'll learn much more than I'll ever know. Just left me thinking, do we even live in a world where that's true anymore? It was there and then that I decided I was going to stand up and take civil resistance. Civil resistance against a government that's killing us. Civil resistance against a government that's destroying our futures.
Cringe. It would be a wonderful world if you stopped crawling under roads and then complaining to police officers about your safety. But look, it's a basic question tonight. What do you think? Do you support Just Stop Oil? Let me know your thoughts by emailing dan@gbnews.uk. Tweet me at GBNews. While you're there, go and vote in our poll. But to help me make your mind up, Just Stop Oil spokesperson Alex de Koning and philosopher and energy expert Alex Epstein. So, Just Stop Oil, Alex, you're not winning over the public with that sort of criminality, are you? Putting people's lives at risk. You've got to stop this. It's eco-terrorism, Alex.
Well, actually, when we did our actions in April, there was an independent YouGov poll that showed that more people supported climate activism after the protests that we did. And we're not trying to win the X factor here. This is not a popularity contest. We're trying to make change because we're in a climate emergency.
Are you trying to kill people?
No, of course we're not trying to kill people.
Why are your people
protest.
currently tunnelling under roads? And actually trying to make the road so unstable that the HGV trucks, if they drove over, could potentially crash. I mean, come on.
The way to make that situation safe is for the police to shut down that road, as is their legal duty of care.
It's your legal duty of care not to destroy roads, not to destroy property. You're just anarchists, aren't you, Alex?
No, of course we're not anarchists. It's the government's duty of care in order to make sure that we have a livable planet within the next 50 years. It's been 40 degrees in London. 40 degrees. Yeah. It was so hot that birds fell out of the sky. Train tracks spontaneously combusted. In France, they have to put out wildfires with liquid manure. In the North Pole, it was 27 degrees last month. So hot you would take your jumper off at the North Pole.
So what's your argument in terms of oil specifically? Because you must understand that we are facing an energy catastrophe over winter.
Of course.
Yet you want no production of fossil fuels. Am I correct?
We're trying to say that no new fossil fuel licenses in the UK, because currently they're trying to push through another 40. We have 8 years of oil in reserve, which is more than enough time for a fair transition to renewable energies, which are currently 9 times cheaper per unit of energy. We could be insulating homes, we could be subsidising public transport, we could be tackling the cost of living crisis and the climate crisis right now at the same time. And yet we're just not doing this. We have so many solutions available that are just not being used. Instead, we're subsidising the government, as the government subsidising the fossil fuel industries with £236 million a week. Every single week during this cost of living crisis. That's such a waste of money. Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, the person who I actually want to ask about that is the energy expert Alex Epstein. Alex, quite fascinatingly, your next work is actually called Fossil Future: Why Global Human Flourishing Requires More Oil, Coal and Natural Gas, not less. So you're taking the complete opposite position of Just Stop Oil. Why are you right and why are they wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard for me to even capture the evil of Just Stop Oil because it's a combination of criminality, but in the service of an anti-human goal, which is the rapid elimination of fossil fuels. And just to put this in perspective, even leaving aside the criminality, policies like Just Stop Oil are the reason we're in a global energy crisis. Other Alex has talked about
that is so not true. We could be insulating homes and saying people...
Alex, let Alex Epstein finish and then you'll be able to respond, Alex.
Your Greenpeace talking points, which are all refuted on energytalkingpoints.com if you want to learn about it. Anyway, so we have this crisis, which is the supply of fossil fuels has been suppressed by groups like Just Stop Oil. That was their goal. They have succeeded. They try to compare the price of unreliable solar and wind and reliables. That makes no sense. Those are not apples to apples things at all. But they've caused a global energy crisis, and they have the goal to say, no, we need to stop all new development, which will make the crisis even worse in the next 8 years. And then they're doing it in a totally criminal way. So they're destroying human life, and then that's their end. And then their means is destroying human life. So in my view, other Alex and everyone else associated with this organization should be in prison. So it doesn't look like he's in a prison right now. That's where he should be calling from. And I'd be more than happy to educate him. He just has these bizarre Greenpeace false talking points. I will send him in prison or wherever he ends up a copy of Fossil Future, and I will complimentary give it to everyone in this organization. But you are anti-human criminals as of now.
Alex de Koning, your response?
Oh, I mean, it's all ridiculous, isn't it? What basis do you have? Because I don't even know where to begin. Just what basis?
It sounds ridiculous to me. I agreed with every word.
What basis do you have that fossil fuels are causing all of this global energy crisis? That's blatantly untrue. We live on an island. We could be using tidal energy. We could be using solar and wind 9 times cheaper right now.
Okay, these technologies have all been around for 50 plus years. I know you're not a big guy in terms of knowing anything about this field or the history, but there's a reason why fossil fuels provide 80% plus of the world's energy, why they're still growing, particularly in places that care about low-cost, reliable energy. Why haven't these other kinds of energy succeeded despite massive subsidies and a lot of mandates? Because they're not actually cost-effective.
They don't have massive subsidies. Fossil fuels have massive subsidies, £236 million
this is just false.
a week
Energy
in the
Talking
UK.
Point. Okay, this is incorrect. If you go to energytalkingpoints.com, you can learn the truth about subsidies. Solar and wind have far, far more subsidies and mandates. This is why they don't power any grid without huge dependence on reliable energy anywhere in the world. And by the way, if you want to see what's actually cost effective, look at China, which cares most about cost effective energy. I would like you guys to go to China and say Just Stop Oil and Just Stop Coal in China.
This is something I always wonder about, actually. Alex de Koning, let me ask you about this, Alex de Koning. Why are you focusing on destroying society in Britain when we equate for less than 1% of the global emissions in the world? Why don't you go to China? Why don't you go to India? Why don't you go to the US? Why don't you go to Australia? Why don't you accept that the UK is actually doing far more than the rest of the world in terms of getting to net zero? In my opinion, Alex,
still trying to push through another 40 new facilities. Liz Truss is saying it's going to be another 130 new facilities instead.
Good.
We are far from being climate leaders. I don't know what you're talking about. And of course, there are activists in the US, in Australia, that are all working together and being inspired by this. And if I went to China to protest right now, because they're in such a terrible heat wave,
that's what would happen. You might be
I
shot.
would die of heat stroke because the heat wave is so bad right there.
What's happened to Chinese life expectancy in the last 40 years? I'm just curious if you have any idea. What's happened to climate-related deaths in the last 40 years? These are publicly available data. I would assume you would want to know these things if you're telling the public to make life and death decisions and you're engaging in criminal activity to intimidate them. So what's happened to Chinese life expectancy? What's happened to climate-related deaths? I'm just curious.
I'm finding it really hard to hear you, in all honesty. Something about Chinese-related deaths.
Yeah, what's happened in terms of climate-related deaths in China and what's happened to the life expectancy in China, Alex?
Well, because of this heat wave, there's been thousands of deaths in China. Their energy security is completely shot and they're struggling with floods. Same with Pakistan. 1,200 people have died in Pakistan over the last few days because of extreme floods. 30 million people have been affected by that. Don't talk to me about life expectancy. People are dying around the world right now. There are more fossil-fueled air pollution deaths than malaria, tuberculosis and HIV combined. This happens every day, Alex. What are you talking about?
Okay, so Well, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. So you can't just start spewing out more falsehoods, but let's deal with climate-related disaster deaths are down 98% in the last 100 years and down very significantly over the last 40 years.
That is not
Chinese
true.
life
1,000 people
expectancy
died in England because of this recent heat wave.
Yes, do you know that
So many
millions
deaths
of people
constantly.
used
Where are
to
you
die?
getting your facts?
I am getting them from international, nonpartisan sources, not your Greenpeace talking about. So go to energytalkingpoints.com. It all has non-political sources. It is a fact that climate-related disaster deaths are down. It is a fact that Chinese life expectancy has skyrocketed thanks to the use of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels make the world far better than they do make it worse. And if you
literally
engage in the destruction of
fossil fuel companies to say this.
Incorrect.
By the Koch
Incorrect.
brothers.
You're just,
Why should I listen to a multimillionaire like you?
I'm
when it
working
comes
on
to the
becoming
cost
a
of living crisis, when it
multimillionaire, but
comes to
that's
energy
selling
crisis.
books to the general public. So again, this is just, I don't know where he's getting his talking points. First of all, it's not the Koch
I'm doing my
brothers.
PhD in green hydrogen production. That's where I'm getting these talking points. I know a lot more about this than you do.
Okay, but
And I'm 24. Why should I be the adult in the room?
Alex Epstein of being paid for by fossil fuel companies. Alex Epstein, is that true?
No, where is
You
he
literally
coming up
got
with this?
sued for doing this.
I haven't been sued by anyone. This guy is just making up. So you just go, I mean, you go to alexepstein.com. I talk about this Koch brothers manufacturer thing. Who's sued? If I've been sued, it's news to me. I haven't heard of this. So look, all of these things I'm talking about, just go to twitter.com/alexepstein, everyone. I have very carefully documented all of the things that this other Alex is in denial of.
Yes.
So
Alex Decodian, I just want to ask you finally, is it true that Just Stop Oil are planning even more eco-terrorism in October? Are you really wanting to stop day-to-day life for lots of ordinary British businesses?
We are fighting for our lives. Why would we stop? Come join us on the 1st of October. We're going to have a massive march which is to do with the cost of living crisis and with the climate crisis. It's not eco-terrorism. We're a non-violent, peaceful protest organisation.
It is eco-terrorism under the Terrorism Act of the year 2000. You should go and read it. It is provably eco-terrorism because you are threatening the government with law-breaking that is putting people's lives and property at risk unless your political demands are fulfilled. It is the definition of terrorism under the 2000 Act, so you should go and have a look at that. And Alex Decodian, presumably you're prepared to be arrested again, you're prepared to go to prison for this?
If it comes down to it, then I see no other choice. At least if I'm in prison, I get 3 meals a day. Because of the food shortages, we're expected to have 50% crop failure by the end of the year. I may not get 3 meals a day in 6 months.
Okay, fascinating.
Well, you wouldn't deserve it, but the rest of the people don't deserve to starve because of your criminal, immoral activity.
They're starving because of climate change, not because we're disrupting an oil tanker. That's not how it works. 50% of the potato crop
1 degree
is going to fail
warmer in
this
170
year in the UK.
years, we can't make food. We forgot how to make food?
Okay.
No, you prevented us from
We
using
will
fossil
have you
fuels.
back because this is definitely going to rumble on. That was Just Stop Oil spokesperson Alex Decodian and philosophy and energy expert Alex Epstein. So who do you agree with after wreaking havoc and disrupting deliveries of fuel, food and newspapers? Do you support Just Stop Oil? Sean on Twitter says, like Extinction Rebellion and Insulate Britain, these people from Just Stop Oil are all for themselves and just terrorise innocent bystanders. Rango says when they vandalise property, they should be locked up and made to pay all the costs for the damage and clean-up. Also, they should cover cost of the lost revenue due to the vandalism. And from Ali, the police need to haul them out of their tunnels, drag them off the roads, arrest them all for public order offences and sling the lot of them in jail.